We're going to turn now to the future Queen consort, Camilla. She's given a rare interview about her life with Prince Charles and how she has learned to cope with criticism. Criticism after decades in the spotlight. Maggie really is in London with the story. Good morning, Maggie. For years, the British royal family has carefully preserved the idea of unity. A delicate balance of smiles, handshakes, and joint appearances intended to persuade the world that tradition remains unbroken. Everything has been simmering behind those royal doors, though. A silent, seething anger that exploded unexpectedly. And now the monarchy is experiencing its most personal crisis in a generation. What began as a typical royal strategy meeting turned into a devastating split between Queen Camilla and Catherine, Princess of Wales. An intense, highly personal dispute that stunned the palace. According to some insiders, the confrontation became nasty. Words were spoken that cannot be taken back. Voices were raised. Doors slammed. Catherine exited the room in tears. But the true turning point came hours later, when Prince William learnt what had happened. What he heard, particularly Camilla's nasty remarks, was enough to alter royal procedure permanently. In an unusual step, Prince William made a secret but irreversible decision. Camilla has a lifetime ban on all engagements with his wife or children. No more joint appearances. No shared balcony moments. No invites to intimate family gatherings. The Queen consort has effectively been removed from the Wales family's regnal future. The decision astounded royal insiders. However, has a senior royal been personally and privately sanctioned in such a calculated manner? Not even Prince Andrew. Nonetheless, this was not a scandal involving money, title, or politics. This was something much deeper. This was personal. According to people closest to the matter, Camilla and Catherine's feud had been simmering for years, fueled by small remarks, veiled insults, and long-held jealousy. But no one expected it to burst so furiously, or that Prince William would respond so decisively and unforgivingly. The palace is scrambling to limit the fallout. King Charles is claimed to be saddened, divided between devotion to his wife and the realization that he may have lost his son's confidence forever. Meanwhile, Camilla is enraged and humiliated, reduced to a figure of isolation within the institution she once battled so hard to join. And through it all, Catherine has stayed mute, carrying out her royal duties with quiet dignity and refusing to add fuel to the fire, despite knowing full well that the nation has already made its decision. It wasn't just an argument, it was a royal war. In the end, one woman was exiled, while another was quietly honored in the hearts of the people. To the outside world, the relationship between Queen Camilla and Catherine, Princess of Wales, has always been civil. Polished smiles, polite exchanges at royal events, and the rare photo opportunity that implied a functional, if distant, alliance. Insiders, however, have long whispered that hatred and competition have been quietly seething beneath the surface for more than 10 years. And these tensions, which have been suppressed for the sake of the monarchy's image, have finally reached a breaking point. The reality is that Camilla never truly accepted Catherine, not as the future queen, and especially not as the public's new favorite. Camilla is said to have been suspicious of Kate's admission into the royal family from the start. She had worked her way to the top after years of controversy, gossip, and being portrayed as the antagonist in Diana's story. Camilla found Kate's immaculate reputation, working-class origins, and flawless public image to be not only lucky, but also aggravating. According to former palace staff, Camilla frequently made veiled comments about Catherine's middle-class manners and over-reliance on public sympathy. One aide remembered an early encounter where Camilla reportedly said, "She knows how to smile for the cameras. I'll give her that." Another insider claimed Camilla once mocked the Middleton family's business, calling it tacky party nonsense in private conversation. But Kate, ever the peacemaker, never publicly objected. For years she bit her tongue, keeping a polite distance and concentrating on her children, patronages, and the long-term goal of becoming queen consort. However, those closest to her say the excavation took a toll. Kate knew Camilla looked down on her, one longtime aide admitted. However, those closest to her say the excavation took a toll. Kate knew Camilla looked down on her, one longtime aide admitted, but she always responded, "We're here to serve, not fight. That's who she is. She never desired drama. She only wanted peace." However, their friendship was stressed by more than simply personal barbs. Camilla's increased attempts to impose power inside the monarchy, particularly after Charles became king. With her new title, Camilla began to bring her family, her children and grandchildren, closer to the royal fold. Many interpreted it as an attempt to establish a rival dynasty, blurring the distinction between blood royalty and royal by marriage. Kate, who had spent years protecting her children's privacy and position, reportedly saw Camilla's effort as entitlement, masked as tradition. She was particularly horrified by allegations that Camilla had fought to have her grandkids featured in official royal ceremonies, even over Harry and Meghan's children, causing additional friction behind the scenes. Then came the press games. Royal reporters close to Camilla's camp began to shift tone subtly, suggesting Kate was too reserved, too stage-managed, while painting Camilla as the stabilizing matriarch. One editorial even dared to compare Camilla's real-world wisdom with Kate's perfectionist polish, prompting an online backlash that royal aides quickly distanced from the Waleses. "It was clear," stated one royal pundit. Camilla was attempting to rebuild her image by quietly criticizing Kate's. However, the people did not buy it. If anything, it backfired. Throughout it all, William and Kate kept mute. They avoided conflict, focused on their responsibilities, and played the long game. They were uninterested in palace politics or personal conflicts until Camilla made it personal. Private peace offers were reportedly made over the years, including little gestures, joint engagements, and behind-the-scenes efforts to heal the relationship. But nothing stuck. Insiders say Camilla could never get over her resentment that Kate had gained the public's favor so easily, despite the fact that she had worked for acceptance for decades, and Catherine, despite her composure, had grown tired of the games. So when the now famous disagreement broke out behind closed doors, when the words finally became sharp and the smiles faded, it wasn't an unplanned outburst. It was the unavoidable culmination of years of silent conflict, damaged egos, and two very different conceptions of what it means to be queen. One based on service and reliability. The other discusses survival and spin. And this time, the palace was too small for both of them. It was supposed to be a typical meeting at Clarence House, nothing more than a strategic conversation regarding the upcoming year's royal events, with King Charles, Queen Camilla, Prince William, and Princess Catherine all there. But what began as a routine scheduling review swiftly devolved into a full-fledged royal crisis, as decades of simmering animosity burst into open battle between two of the monarchy's most powerful women. According to those there that day, the meeting began in a courteous manner. Charles sat at the head of the long table, surrounded by Camilla on one side and William and Kate to the other. Staff informed the senior royals of future public appearances, state visits, and which family members would be assigned to specific trips. However, when the subject moved to a planned joint appearance by Charles, Camilla, and the Waleses, Camilla apparently cocked an eyebrow and questioned, "Do we really need Catherine there? Sometimes she has a propensity to make everything about herself." The room went silent. Kate, surprised, asked Camilla for clarification. Camilla reportedly smirked and added, "People come to see the king, not a fashion show." Aides squirmed uncomfortably in their seats, hoping not to react. However, the tension was unmistakable. Kate, poised but visibly scared, responded calmly and precisely, "I am not here for attention. I'm here for duty." Camilla was not done. She leaned forward to deliver the line that broke everything. As Diana was, I guess. The room froze. That name, Diana, was a red line. Everyone in the royal household is aware of this. Camilla invoked it with a sneer in front of William, which was beyond outrageous. It was a direct and personal assault. Kate stood up. Her voice was unsteady, and she just uttered this, "That woman will never speak to me again." She left the room, leaving a startled quiet. Years later, William followed her out, his jaw knotted and his eyes filled with rage. What happened next is still being debated by insiders, but sources claim that William addressed Camilla immediately, informing her unequivocally that she had crossed an unforgivable line. Charles sought to intervene, but his words went unheard. "You have disrespected my wife. You have disrespected my mother. Don't expect to see my family again." The meeting ended in complete collapse. Staff members who were present characterized the mood as radioactive. Phones rang incessantly. Advisors hurried to rewrite planned press releases, and event coordinators began rearranging positions for the next royal visit. One senior assistant admitted, "We all knew this day was coming. We didn't expect it to blow up like that." Back at Kensington Palace, Catherine is said to have broken down privately. Not from weakness, but from the sheer weight of years of perseverance, biting her tongue and rising above. This time, the wound felt too personal, and William understood that as a husband, father, and future king, he had a responsibility to act, not only for Kate, but also for Diana's legacy and the monarchy's image. This was not palace gossip. This was wartime, and the monarchy would never be the same again. Prince William has always been regarded as the monarchy's steady hand, a calm, trained successor capable of weathering any storm with poise. However, in the hours after Camilla and Catherine's violent confrontation, that reputation gave way to something even more powerful, resolute, unforgiving leadership. Because when it came to his wife, his mother's memories, and the future of his children, William made it clear that there are boundaries that must be respected. Back at Kensington Palace, after soothing Catherine and conferring privately with his closest aides, William made a decision that shocked the royal family. He issued a direct order through the palace's internal line of command. Camilla was forbidden from any and all engagements with his wife or children. There would be no more combined events, no overlapping tours, no shared holiday appearances, and most importantly, no formal or casual connection between Camilla and the Wales family. According to one report, he was specific. This was not a momentary situation. It was not a cooling-off phase. It was permanent. The message spread across the royal staff with extraordinary speed and clarity. Private secretaries were directed to start redrawing event calendars. When their aides were instructed to reroute invitations and reconsider future Jubilee appearances, the palace press staff, taken completely off guard, was instructed to prepare for a logistical realignment in the royal schedule. Code for a quiet royal exile. According to sources close to the incident, William's tone was icy but concentrated. He made no public appearances, had no interviews, and expected no spectacle. But his words, delivered behind closed doors, were devastating. "She humiliated my wife. She included my mother's name in it." Camilla will no longer be a part of our life. The significance of those remarks cannot be emphasized. Since the days of Prince Philip, no senior royal has taken such intentional action against a fellow member of the firm. And William didn't need the crown on his head to do it. His authority stemmed from public trust rather than title. He and Catherine had earned this trust over the course of a decade with dignity, discipline, and self-control. To be clear, this was not a legally binding public prohibition. Camilla keeps her title, place alongside Charles, and ceremonial role. But William did something more strategic, and potentially more damaging. He cut her out of the future. Privately, Charles was devastated. According to sources, he attempted to contact William several times, but received either silence or brief responses. The king realized the damage had been done. And possibly worse, he knew the populace would most likely support William. Indeed, within 48 hours of the judgment emerging through confidential channels to royal reporters, the headlines were ablaze. William exiles Camilla from the Wales circle. Princess Catherine, safe after explosive royal clash. Future king draws the line. Camilla shunned. Social media erupted with support. Fans gathered on X, Instagram, and TikTok to support the decision. Hashtags like #ProtectCatherine and #NoterQueen started trending, and royal observers applauded William for finally holding Camilla accountable. One royal commentator said it best, "William has shown us who is in charge now, without shouting or scandal, but with cold, clean action. And with that, the monarchy's future transformed, not by slaughter or abdication, but through a single sentence said by a frustrated son." Camilla had not simply lost her temper that day. She lost her ability to influence the crown's future. For King Charles, the impact from Camilla and Catherine's feud struck at the heart of everything he had battled to protect: his monarchy, marriage, and legacy. And as events spiraled out of control, the man who had been so eager to modernize the crown was forced to confront a tragic truth. He could no longer keep his two worlds together. The conflict between Camilla and Catherine had done more than shake palace walls. It had punctured the carefully crafted picture that Charles had tried so hard to preserve. He had spent decades trying to reconcile the public with Camilla, the lady he had loved, through controversy and quiet. For him, her eventual acceptance as queen consort represented a triumph over time, tradition, and criticism. But now that victory has gone to ashes. According to insiders, Charles was gutted to learn of Prince William's decision to ban Camilla from any Wales family engagements. Initially, he assumed it was a misunderstanding, an emotional outburst that might be soothed with the right words. But William wouldn't budge. The king requested a private meeting with his son, hoping to mend the damage. What ensued was one of the most difficult conversations Charles had ever had. According to palace sources, father and son's discussion was difficult, passionate, and ultimately one-sided. Charles pleaded with William to reconsider. He spoke about togetherness, duty, and appearances, but William remained firm. "It's not about appearances, father. It's about respect. She disrespected my wife. She disrespected my mother. There is no going back from that." Charles was stunned. He knew his son's temper might flash, but he had rarely seen him so determined. He appealed to Catherine, thinking that her kindness might open a way. Despite her controlled demeanor, she was described as gracious but unmoving. As a result, the king was forced to make a decision. In private, rather than in public, his efforts to appease both sides started to unravel. Camilla was upset and demanded that Charles defend her. She saw William's actions as a betrayal of their years of hard work, accusing Charles of throwing her to the wolves. In her views, he was allowing Diana's ghost, via Catherine, to win the war she had previously lost. But Charles, trapped by circumstance and conscience, could do nothing. In public, he said nothing. There have been no statements or press corrections. In private, aides watched his mood worsen. His typical regimen became unpredictable. He canceled the peaceful dinners. His remarks, which were normally filled with warmth, became dry and cut. One insider said it clearly. He looked like a man unraveling. And indeed, he was, because Charles realized something Camilla never did. William and Catherine were more than merely popular. They represented the monarchy's future. Without their support and presence, the crown risked becoming irrelevant. For a man who had waited his entire life to be king, The realization that his own wife may jeopardize his future was a harsh irony. Camilla, once his rebellious partner, had become the trigger for a royal schism that Charles might never mend. And while he still stood with her in public, his quiet became more pronounced with each passing day. He'd fought to make her queen. However, he could no longer defend her, not from the public, not from William, and not from the consequences of a war she began, but couldn't win. As rumors of the altercation between Queen Camilla and Princess Catherine began to circulate within the monarchy's closely controlled walls, the British public did what it has always done in times of royal scandal, chose a side. And this time, their affiliations were clear. Within hours of insider reports indicating a serious internal rift between the Queen Consort and the Princess of Wales, social media exploded in a wave of support for Catherine. Hashtags like #StandWithKate, #OurFutureQueen, and #NotMyQueen. Camilla dominated X, formerly Twitter. Users flooded royal postings with responses backing Kate and condemning Camilla's behavior, particularly after word spread about the supposed Diana remark. One tweet was shared over 150,000 times and read, "First, they abuse Diana. They've come for Kate. We see a pattern. We choose the future." Catherine always. Public opinion was not only impassioned, it was ferocious. Camilla, already a contentious character in the eyes of many, saw her reputation plummet to new lows. Editorials in major publications began to vary subtly in tone. Once neutral headlines become sharper, Camilla's influence crumbling after clash with Catherine. Wales family rises while Queen Consort fades from view. A new era has begun, led by William and Kate. Polls revealed the shift with terrible clarity. A YouGov flash survey found that 82% of respondents supported William's decision to remove Camilla from his family. An even bigger number, nearly 90%, praised Kate's grace under pressure and saw her as the most trustworthy royal after the late Queen Elizabeth. Real commentators were taken aback by the quickness and ferocity of the transformation. One person noted, "Kate did not say anything. She did not need to." Camilla's quiet was more powerful than any words she had ever spoken. The public recognized the difference and made their decision. And the choice was clear. Kate was their queen-in-waiting, not just by title, but by heart. Camilla began withdrawing from planned public events, citing health fatigue and schedule reassessments, while Catherine continued to attend with her typical kindness and humility. She went to a children's hospital. She started a new mental health campaign. In every appearance, she smiled warmly, touched youngsters, and waved to audiences who were now cheering her name even louder than before. Even behind closed doors, palace insiders said the power shift was palpable. Staff who had previously avoided the Queen Consort's mood swings have now publicly supported the Wales household. Senior advisors referred to Catherine not only as Her Royal Highness, but also as the stabilizing force of the crown. Some even whispered what no one dared to speak out previously. If Kate had been queen already, this never would have happened. Meanwhile, Camilla's image continued to deteriorate. Satirical talk shows began reviving old controversies. Documentaries about Diana's legacy were re-aired with renewed interest, and every time Kate appeared in public, it was viewed as a direct contrast to the woman who had once replaced Diana in Charles's life and was now on the verge of being replaced herself in the public's heart. When the monarchy founded on symbolism and public trust, this was more than just terrible optics. It was a seismic shift. Kate did not raise her voice. She hadn't fired back. She had simply stood tall, safeguarded her family, and allowed the truth to reveal itself. And in doing so, she became more than just the future queen. She became the benchmark by which all others would be assessed. The British monarchy has long survived on appearances, polished smiles, scripted unity, and carefully choreographed tradition. But beneath the surface, true power lies not in titles or lineage, but in public loyalty. And now, after years of tension, veiled slights, and behind-the-scenes rivalry, that loyalty has irreversibly shifted. Prince William's decision to bar Queen Camilla from any involvement with his family was not taken lightly, but decisively. And it marked a turning point, not just in a personal feud, but in the future of the royal family itself. There was no press release, no staged reconciliation, just a firm, silent statement that drew a line in the sand. You do not cross my wife. You do not drag my mother's name. You do not belong in our future. Camilla, once considered a necessary compromise in Charles's long journey to the throne, now finds herself frozen out, isolated, and perhaps for the first time, truly powerless. Her access to the Wales family, the public's favor, and her place in the evolving monarchy has been stripped away, not by decree, but through rejection. King Charles, caught between his past and his legacy, has been left to watch the house he built pivot towards a future he no longer fully controls. Catherine, the woman once questioned for being too common, now stands as the quiet queen in waiting, the embodiment of dignity and strength, beloved by a nation that sees her as the rightful successor to Diana's legacy. Camilla will continue to appear beside Charles, but her role has been diminished, not by scandal, but by consequence, a silent sanction enforced by the heir who controls the crown's destiny. So the line has been drawn, not ink, but activity, not in a ceremony, but in silence. Camilla believes there is no way back, not with William, not with Catherine, and not among those who have already picked their queen.